So once again, thank you for being part of this webinar, and welcome to the next hour and a half of talk about industrial symbiosis in the West Balkan countries. The Circular Economy Beacons is the host of this event, and we are here for 2 years now, with the goal to establish an ecosystem for circular economy implementation and circular economy innovation in the Balkan region. Basically our mission is to create a socio-economic system that facilitates for a profitable, safe, fair, clean, and resilient circular market. So it's not that we want to talk about theory too much. It's about that we want to bring theory to practice and adopt novel approaches that are currently running mostly in western part of the Europe or European Union, adopt them and make them, let's call it, applicable to our region. So what we have been doing in last 2 years was making the basis of such an ecosystem, and all of the partners that are currently in this system, and it's 7 of us. We will see what countries we are covering. We are all driven by these 4 dimensions. It's values and vision, sharing information, sharing resources, and sharing experience and expertise. These are the core factors of our collaboration. And in the future, we hope that we'll have more partners that will be able to contribute, but also to use this ecosystem. Currently, we do encompass 5 countries: Serbia, Romania, Bulgaria, Greece, Bosnia and Herzegovina, very actively. And we have 2 supporting partners, one from Spain and one from Germany. What is the basis of our development is that we set up a uniform knowledge about circular economy, because many of you definitely know that circular economy today is understood in many different ways, starting only from pure waste management, let's call it upgrade, up to the very novel and maybe some kind of utopian theoretic strivings. So what we want to achieve here in Circular Economy Beacons is to make the uniform understanding of circular economy that is applicable to our region. That is why also we dedicate many webinars and some events, and we're going to work on this also in the future. So it's also an invitation for you to collaborate with us. How do we see? So firstly, we need to create uniform knowledge. Then we need to create a network that will be applying this knowledge on the market or in real life. And then we need to create some kind of a market buy-in in order to make it practical and profitable, also for the companies, not only to development agencies. And at the end, we want to start and talk about how entrepreneurship, how our young force and innovation can contribute to this circular economy innovation ecosystem. So these are 4 concentric circles, how we intend actually to develop. And of course, we have 2 axes that are constantly that we are supporting, not so much actively involved. So this is a policy support, without which we will not be able to create many of the things in regards to circular economy, and we are going to see some of them today on our webinar. And as well as we need to create a measurement system in order to know where we are, to measure our impact and to measure our development. So what we have done and what is the plan for Circular Economy Beacons in a couple of next years? Last year, we were exploring what are the options. We have created the first connections, created some kind of first stakeholder system, attracting more than 400 actors that want to contribute and want to participate in this ecosystem. And we have started with the business implementation frameworks, with basically transforming some of the businesses to start doing their transformation towards circular business. It's not an easy journey, it's not a quick journey, but we are making the first steps together with several companies, and this impact is going to be expanded. It's expanding now. It's going to expand next years, and we're along the way. We are all going to improve in these strivings. In 21, again, we're doing the exploration in many areas, mainly about the needs of the surrounding country. So we are working on 4 needs assessments, and after this research, we will basically know what are the needs from the business side, from the governmental side, and from the institution side, from the academia and innovation side in Serbia, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Montenegro, and Croatia. And we're going to expand this research even further. We're building the arguments if and how circular economy is applicable in the Balkan region. And this year we're focusing on municipalities. As you've seen, we're also doing the policy support. With the municipalities, we want to raise the capacity and give them some kind of a framework where they can detect the hotspots of their interaction or their action towards circular economy that goes beyond waste and water management or maybe environmental protection. Definitely not all actors will be ready for this, but we're aiming for some that are, ready to drive the change. In 2022, we're going to be more action focused and more impact focused, but we're going to explore how the innovation system stands in our region, and also supporting and building the financial, let's call it a platform, to support this innovation when the time comes. So basically after 23. And at the end, in 23 and maybe 24, we want to blend all our strivings, include all the actors in one ecosystem, and actually create the supporting services for circular economy to strive or to develop. Since from my side, I don't want to talk too much and take too much time from our speakers. But definitely, if you want to know more, please visit our website. Also, there is a YouTube channel and there is a blog of all our previous webinars, and you can visit and see for yourself what is there that we're working with. Yeah, that is from my side this time. And at this moment, I would like to welcome Ms. Alica Petkova, project coordinator of our dear partner, Cleantech Bulgaria, that will share with us a story about the transition of Bulgarian industrial symbiosis. But before that, sorry, Alica, I forgot one very important thing. There will be a poll visible for you on your screen, and please be kind to let us know where are you coming from. It's just a test because we want to interact a little bit with you during this webinar. And this is just the first question to see if this thing is working or not. Okay, now I have nice 40% participation. Good. Let's push it a little bit more. Okay, for now we have pretty much 25% of SMEs, people from SMEs, 10% from large companies, 7% from NGOs, 17% from governmental institutions, 17% of individual experts or consultancy, and 27% of others. And basically, this is the split that we are constantly seeing, very similar split that we are constantly seeing on our webinars and our events. And that is also why we're focusing on the SME sector and governmental institutions, as we see here, is the most kind of eager to know more about circular economy, and we're happy to please this. So without further ado, Alica, it's really nice to introduce you, and the time is yours. Please share what is the development of industrial symbiosis in Bulgaria.
Thank you, Milan, for the introduction. I will just share my screen now. Okay. I don't know why I'm not seeing my PowerPoint. anyway.
If you want, I can put it instead of you.
No, it's on. It's on.
Okay, perfect.
Please confirm that you can see my screen now.
Nice. We can see it nicely.
Okay.
Okay, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you very much, Milan. It is my pleasure to talk about industrial symbiosis to our audience today. This is a topic of very high interest, personal interest for me for some 7 years already. I'm really happy that we are bringing this conversation into our Balkan context in line with the circular economy beacons objectives and transition paths. I would use just a minute to give some introductory words on what industrial symbiosis is, because my assumption is that it is coming as a term in our languages, in the Balkan languages. It is coming as a principle, but it's not so widely spread yet. So basically, industrial symbiosis is symbiosis. It is cooperation between industries and companies that leaves no material streams, energy streams, or waste streams behind. And in practice, that means that companies operate in synergies that allow them to share resources. So a residue from one company becomes a raw material for the other. So that gives them both economic and environmental benefits. According to the European framework for industrial symbiosis, is actually it should exist when at least 3 companies share at least 2 streams between each other. And according to the European framework, there are 3 types of industrial symbiosis. The first one is between collocated companies, geographically collocated, so companies that are near to each other. The second one could be between companies that are positioned remotely from each other. And the third one can be by companies that are in border regions and are organized virtually. So in general, this is the principle of industrial symbiosis. I cannot skip this example. I will just guide you through the Kalundborg symbiosis that is the oldest in the world. It's in Denmark. I'm on my own Master of Science from a Danish university, so it was very well embedded in our studies on how Kalundborg symbiosis works. It was established in 1972. So those are 50 years of collaborations between companies. Currently, the symbiosis comprises of 12 public and private companies in Kalundborg. This is a city in Denmark. And the sectors that they represent are quite diverse. This symbiosis is going beyond one sector and exchange of streams between similar companies, and it comprises of power plant, pharmaceutical industry, waste management company, light construction company, biotechnology, oil refineries, 2 of them, and protein production company. So you can see quite diverse industries, very different from each other, and they have managed to establish a total of 29 streams between each other in energy, water, and materials. And the materials that they exchange are also of different kinds, very diverse. So they exchange waste, they exchange gypsum, they exchange sand, sludge, and biomass, and those are just to name a few. I would like to play to you a very short video, like 2 minutes video on the Kalundborg symbiosis. Sorry.
Let's say we cannot hear the sound, so basically Zoom
okay.
sometimes likes to cut
okay,
things.
okay, sorry about that. Maybe I can share the video with you in the chat, so everybody can watch it. Yeah, Zoom does those things sometimes. I am sorry about that. Okay.
So what we're going to do, we're going to share the presentations with all of you that are with us, and definitely you can see, we'll post this to your chat and to the communication that we're going to establish with you later on. Thanks. Yeah. And you can continue, of course.
Yes, of course. Thank you very much, Milan. So now we are switching to the Balkan region. We saw what are people in the Nordic countries doing, and definitely my opinion is that we can learn from them further and take their experiences, example, and good practices to implement in our regions. But actually the topic is not novel for our countries as well. I have done a little bit of research on the historical prerequisites that we have specifically in Bulgaria. And it is evident that with the very well-developed industry after the World War II, symbiotic relations were existing back then. So in the past, those industrial agro complexes were established in Bulgaria, and I assume these there were similar cases in other Balkan countries, where big industrial units group together diverse sectors for maximum utilization of material and energy flows. And those have been connected mainly to the agricultural sector and the products generated and produced by it, like production of sugar and utilization of byproducts in other sectors. But unfortunately, in the 90s, with this transition we went through, these symbiotic relations were stopped or destroyed due to the restructuration of the industry. So what is the state of the art now? What we have learned from another project that we are part on Interact Europe from our partners in the Nordic regions is that actually there are two ways of planning for industrial symbiosis. And they have designed those two ways and approaches based on their long-lasting experience. Kalundborg symbiosis is the most well-known example in the world, but it's not the only one in the Nordic region, because more cases are available in Norway, Sweden, Finland, Iceland, and so on. So what they have structured is that an industrial symbiosis can be planned in a top-down approach or in a bottom-up approach. So the top-down approach is based on a clear vision and strategy on a national regional level. And therefore, the establishment of industrial symbiosis are supported by governments and municipal and regional units in partnerships with different key private companies in the regions. The bottom-up approach, on the other hand, is it originates from the incentives of private companies in the regions. And in this case, there is no framework, legislative framework that supports the establishment of industrial symbiosis, but it's more privately incentivized in industrial parks. This approach is used in Norway, Sweden, and Iceland, and of course, the top-down approach is used in Denmark, in the case of Kalmborg, and in Finland. What we have as examples in Bulgaria right now, and what the state of the art is that actually we have single examples of bottom-up industrial symbiosis. Those are incentivized by private companies who source their partners and develop their own solutions. The legislative framework is still missing. So a few examples, we have biodegradable waste from a big supermarket in Sofia that goes to biogas in the municipal waste treatment company. Then we have technical gypsum from filtering system of power plant that are used as a substitute for natural gypsum in the production of gypsum products. We have waste oil from mechanical engineering company that goes as raw material in the production of oils in the automotive industry. And then we have this very interesting example, phyolite. This is a substance that is a waste product from the production of copper. It is used for the production of clinker. This is a raw material in the cement industry. What is visible here with those examples is actually that those symbiotic relations are between big companies. SMEs are yet a bit left out of the picture, and this is what we see as an underused potential, because as we know, SMEs are the backbone of our economies. So the objective here is actually to see how to include the SMEs in those values, in those symbiotic relations, and how that can be planned strategically. And here comes the interesting part. The path forward for Bulgaria from now on, in light with the new programming period, in light with all the strategic objectives of the European Union and the priorities in the Green Deal and all the framework that we have in place already, is that we should establish climate neutral economies. And the path forward for Bulgaria from now on is actually to establish this top-down approach as a driver for a massive deployment of industrial symbiotic principles. Therefore, we need to switch from these private incentives to government support in a structured manner. And industrial symbiosis should find its place in the strategic documents. The role of the strategic documents also will be to allow SMEs to enter this conversation and to be part of this transition. What I would like to pinpoint here is that it's not only examples about big companies having industrial symbiotic relations. It is really important to consider the fact that big companies have a lot of SMEs gravitating around them. So we cannot exclude big companies from this transition because they have the drive to attract SMEs and the resources, of course, more than SMEs have in those symbiotic relations. And therefore, the objective here is to design opportunities for both big companies and SMEs at the same time. What we are actually having in place already is the ambition to integrate the principle of co-location of companies through the support to industrial parks. The first thing is that we have in place a new law for industrial parks that will give a push to the development of industrial parks in the country. Those will be, of course, targeted at big companies, but not only, they will be targeted at SMEs as well. And here, this new law comes jointly with the National Recovery and Resilience Plan that is still in development. And the National Recovery and Resilience Plan says that it will support industrial parks But in the other hand, it will combine the development of industrial zones with the support for green transition and circular economy for SMEs. Therefore, this will be an instrument that will allow both big companies and SMEs to benefit from funding for establishing such kind of relations in the industrial parks. This is very important because the strategic documents that we have in place, meaning the National SME Promotion Strategy, the Program Innovation and Competitiveness in the Enterprises, they are mainly targeted at SMEs. So in this sense, in the sense of funding, now big companies are a bit left out. So the National Recovery and Resilience Plan will somehow fill this gap and will allow joint actions. Then looking into SMEs and their position, they are very well backed up with support measures and funding in the National SME Promotion Strategy and in the Program Innovation and Competitiveness in the Enterprises. Both documents have strategic priorities around the green transition of SMEs and transition to circular models. And therefore, industrial symbiosis finds its place in both documents. What we know already, even though the program Innovation and Competitiveness is still in development, it's not approved yet by the Commission, is that actually it will have the budget of 10 million euro for establishment of industrial symbiosis and additional 70 million for support for companies in industrial parks. But this will be support to SMEs entering industrial parks as prerequisites for the establishment of industrial symbiosis. And last but not least, we have the strategy for transition to circular economy. This is still in development, but industrial symbiosis over there is a very integral part of all the measures. The common thing between all national strategic documents at that very moment is that they recognize industrial symbiosis as one possible approach for taking the transition towards circular economy. What we need to underline here actually is that industrial symbiosis is a complex process to organize, plan. It requires systemic engagement, if we can use this climatic language. So many stakeholders, a lot of investments, a lot of interests to be considered, etc. And this makes the process a bit complex, but of course not impossible to happen. What we still think remains a barrier in the Bulgarian context, even though industrial symbiosis is very well positioned already in the strategic documents, is the legislative framework around waste. As in other countries, waste is very well regulated. It is the waste from companies, it is still considered as waste, and the framework itself, it still treats this waste as something that needs to be utilized or disposed somewhere, or it's not treated as a raw material yet. So the real transition here that will unlock all the pathways forward for industrial symbiosis will be to redesign our legislation and to look at waste as a resource that is actually in the core of the circular economy, the core circular economy principle. Thank you very much. That's it on my side. I'm, of course, open for questions in the end of the webinar.
Thank you, Lisa, very much. There is one question that is guided to you. You can maybe think and answer later, or if you want, you can answer it now. It comes from Ms. Stojnic, Ivanka Stojnic from Serbia, and says, what are the requirements for companies actually to join Industrial Symbiosis? Is there any formal requirements that comes from legislation? Or...
In our perspective, no. If we talk about requirements, I would say that a requirement to join an industrial symbiosis might be creative thinking, knowing your process very well, knowing your waste, knowing your major costs, and thinking into the direction of optimizing them and reallocating your waste to other partners. So networking is also a requirement for the establishment of industrial symbiosis. But in terms of legislative framework and official formal requirements for companies, no.
Thank you very much. Now I would like to launch a new poll, being that we were talking about different approaches of how to tackle industrial symbiosis. In front of you, you will have a question that says, who should actually push the industrial symbiosis type of all production or operations? Is it the company and then push with their solution and ask for the legislation to be brought down? Is it the laws and policies? Is it the consumers that want to see the clear production? Is it the local government? So there is laws and policies on a national level and local governments and cities to make their industrial zones, or something else? Okay, 26%, 30% participation. Okay, maybe a couple of more answers. That would be amazing. Okay, so what we have here is that basically the audience thinks the company should push for this. And then this, on the second level, it's both national and the local level to provide or to require this kind of arrangement of the company. So, so it's an interesting fact.
It is actually a very interesting input from our audience, proactive input, I would say. But if we link those answers to top-down approach and bottom-up approach that I touched in my presentation, it seems that it should be a combination of both.
Yeah, definitely. All right. So the question is why? Why should companies push? And then who was the one? Who were the participants that actually placed their vote for companies? Okay, maybe that will be a nice discussion at the end, opening questions and answers. If you would like to connect with this, feel free to use this option of questions and answers. And we're going to start discussion on this. But also, it is maybe a good lead-in question for the last participant, Nebojša, that will talk more about a little bit of different situation in Serbia. Thank you, Elica. I would like to... Okay. So thank you very much for the presentation. And next, I would like to welcome Dr. Stavropoulos, our speaker from Greece, that will talk more about the, let's call it an effective and efficient way of production that is kind of a prerequisite for the industrial symbiosis, and maybe some new techniques and methods that could be applicable for our region as well. So,
okay, good morning from my side. Good morning. Just confirm that you can see my screen.
Yes, all is good. Thank you.
Okay, let me also fix my settings. Sorry for that. So, okay. And okay, so welcome also from my side. I'm Panos Stavropoulos. I'm coming from the Laboratory for Manufacturing Synthesis and Automation, University of Athens in Greece. And the topic of today's, let's say, presentation or interaction is going to be based in our backbone of our interests, of our applications, or of our, let's say, work. And but all this is going to be wrapped up and formulated in a way that we do allow interactions and flows with the in so-called industrial symbiosis. So we're going to look into the environmental impact of manufacturing and the European Green Deal, of course, how all this interact with the industrial symbiosis. Just a quick fly through of what we're going to hear within the next couple of, let's say, minutes or so. And from the backbone or from the background, okay, regarding the climate change and global temperature rise, okay, as we can see, or as we are already aware, the global temperature has been observed and documented since the 1880s, okay, and we can see in the diagram in the screen that there is, of course, an increasing trend going upwards continuously. It is widely accepted that this is something that sources from the increased concentration of greenhouse gases, and backbone of this increase of concentration of greenhouse gases, we can only imagine that it's due to the increased human activities. One of them is what we should call what we do call manufacturing. And moving now into the European Green Deal and the 2050 carbon neutral Europe target, the European Commission has, let's say, created a roadmap to support governments, organizations, companies, and individuals to move into a greener era with lower carbon emission footprints and more sustainable activities, setting specific targets. The target of 2020 was somehow to reduce or to create a 20% cut in the greenhouse emissions, 20% reduction in the EU energy to be created from renewable energies, and 20% improvement in energy efficiency. 2030 targets at least 40% reduction in greenhouse gases, and 32% of the energy used in the continent to be created from, to be sourced from renewable energy systems, and 32 or more improvement of energy efficiency, targeting to the 2050s, let's say, optimum target to have a climate neutral society. A benchmark for the data or for the levels of reduction are versus the 1990 levels. Manufacturing now, since we're addressing the topic of environmental impact of manufacturing, it is quite worth to identify, to indicate what is the position of the manufacturing sector within the creation of greenhouse gases among the rest of the human activities that are responsible of the human gas emissions. At a global level, okay, manufacturing is responsible for greenhouse gases mainly due to the energy consumptions and the chemical reactions. Within EU, the 25% of the entire energy demand of the continent is due to manufacturing, and energy consumption contributes the acquired or the so-indicated energy consumption contributes to approximately 73% of the greenhouse emissions. Of course, we do understand and we do see, since we are daily bombed with news related to climate change, that there is a need for change, okay? And this need is being implied by legislations that are being imposed by governments or Central European Commission or any other, let's say, observatory organizations or legislation organizations throughout. Customer pressure and societal pressure that is sourcing from the need of the human activities to change towards a cleaner and more sustainable production. Challenges in manufacturing regarding energy consumption. We have identified and let's say that one of the heaviest contributing factors to carbon footprint is the energy consumption within the life cycle of an entity. Starting from the definition of manufacturing, that is the process of transforming raw materials and information into finished commodities with high added value for the satisfaction of human needs. One can easily deduce that manufacturing can be a key contribution to the economic growth of a country because of the competitive nature of the industry. However, energy consumption is both affecting the environment, but also contributing to large-scale costs of the industry. Therefore, reduction is a common denominator for both environmental friendliness and cost savings for the companies. This can be facilitated by the logic produce more with less, meaning that the least amount of material and least resources in general. Setting the boundaries, we should make clear what is the so-called carbon footprint. It is defined as the quantity of greenhouse gases expressed in the equivalent of mass, in equivalent mass of carbon dioxide emitted by an individual, an infrastructure, a service, or a product, but within specific boundaries, expressed, of course, in equivalent kilograms of carbon dioxide. This so-called specific boundaries, has to do also with definition of and interaction with also the industrial symbiosis. So we have to define the boundaries where we do start to calculate and start to improve continuously the carbon footprint of our process, product, or production. In manufacturing, the carbon emissions are derived from mainly the consumption of resources, such as energy and materials, the way that the materials are being consumed and disposed of, and of course, how the materials that we are working on and the equipment that we are working on with the materials are transported to and from the industrial sites. Moving a bit more technical, in a more technical details, carbon emissions are related, of course, to the quantity being consumed multiplied by the factor that is related to the generation of the quantity. This is evident from the equation of the carbon emission calculation at the process level, which is the product of the carbon emission factor for electrical energy and the energy consumed during the process. What we do like to, or how we do approach this entire, let's say, calculation, or the entire, let's say, methodology, we so call it the LMS approach. It's the categorization of different levels of manufacturing. Starting from the lower process level, where we do study the energy losses by the physical mechanisms that are caused by the physical mechanisms relative to the process itself. Moving upwards, in a sense, at the machine level, where we do calculate or try to predict and control the energy losses due to the process itself, as well as to a series of peripherals dedicated to the different aspects of the process. And again, moving up towards the production line and factory level, but energy efficiency is mainly a factor of production planning and the entire scheduling within the organization or within the entire, let's say, level of the ecosystem in the symbiosis level. During now the lower level of manufacturing, or the lower level that we do approach this method or this, let's say, applications, we do foresee that the energy, starting from the estimating of energy consumption at the process level, we have specific, there are, and we do have strong, let's say, participation and strong contributions in the analytical and numerical approaches that have been developed to either specify the optimum parameters that maximize the energy efficiency or reduce the energy consumption, okay? Of course, again, moving from process again up to the machine level, we can see, or we have identified strategies that have been developed to increase energy efficiency using machine tools and bio shutdown modes. And this strategy identifies when the application of such model is profitable, of course, from an energy point of view. Again, increasing or going up the levels in the production line. Now we're talking about digital tools that have been integrated and elaborated in order to optimize the scheduling of the various production systems, and the decision derived from the scheduling sequences have as a common denominator to optimize the energy efficiency and consequently reduce the carbon emissions. The important thing and looking again from the industrial perspective, the industrial prism, the industrial symbiosis perspective, is that the scheduling operations of an organization, we can understand that have a pretty much along the, are pretty much well defined along the interaction lines between different organizations that do belong in the same industrial ecosystem. Of course, there are views and there are approaches that do have to or foresee the customer opinions. This is why we are taking into account the societal, let's say, pressure for change. Many increasing number of people or increasing number of customers do demand and do ask for carbon neutral or energy efficient products. So their opinion is being mainly considered in various monitoring factors along the lines of the digitalization and dashboards created. The generalized approach for energy efficiency, okay, besides calculating the consumption of carbon footprint, okay, there are many studies that have tried to create frameworks for these calculations. But in order to suggest alternatives in manufacturing, we should keep in mind the balanced time between flexibility, quality, time, and cost of the product or the service. And along the lines we have, let's say, and along this tetrahedron, a new factor is being integrated that has to do with energy and eco-efficiency. There are, of course, limitations, and there are limitations of the current studies. The main limitation or the main limiting factors, okay, is that many studies are using just a simplistic approach on carbon footprint reduction, simply by reducing the energy consumption through the optimization of the process parameters. This is a way to do the job, but it's not the best or the optimal way. The reason for that is that with these studies or these approaches do not consider the weighting factor, the importance factor of other resources or other sources. So what is missing from this approach is a holistic approach that somebody first should define the heaviest contributing steps in order to do the calculations, in order to do the energy optimization at the end of the day. So the steps should be try to reduce the carbon emission factors, improve the energy efficiency of the process, improve planning, and conduct or conclude to a less carbon intensive tools that are along that lines. I think this is too technical, but this is more or less the approach that we do foresee should be followed in an industrial ecosystem, and of course allowing the interactions along the lines of symbiosis between the one ecosystem part or partner to the other. Now, taking home message and concluding the presentation. The is summarized. We do propose and we do work on a novel holistic approach for carbon emission reduction. We do foresee that this is a framework for calculating carbon emissions and proposing ways to decrease the environmental impact of manufacturing in general, but not limited to a process or to a line level, but also allowing interaction and flows of data and input and output streams regarding the overall industrial ecosystem. And the most important factor that should be considered is a reduction of carbon emissions that are related, of course, to the energy and material production. This is also proved by a number of studies we have conducted and weighting the factors of a process or for a product or for a service along the lines of the various levels that have been identified. And of course, at the end of the day, it's this coming to the selection or to the level that somebody should or an organization should select the optimum way to improve and to optimize his production or his service according to the energy efficiency or towards the targets of the Green Deal. Okay, and this drives me to the end slide, and thank you, Note, for all of your attention, and I am happy to reply to any questions that have arisen during the presentation or during the panel later on.
Dr. Stavropoulos, thank you very much for the presentation. So one question that is just lingering is, what is the direct connection? So how could people maybe considering these aspects and these methods, how can they implement these into this industrial symbiosis if they're thinking of creating one, or if they're thinking, basically to create or to connect, how this methodology is basically connecting with industrial symbiosis, and is it applicable to multiple connected companies, and what is basically the prerequisite of doing so? Sorry, so muted.
Yes. Okay. So indeed, this is a question, and this is a very good question. How all these, let's say, calculations or methodologies that are being already applied and implemented into manufacturing levels, into different manufacturing levels, as explained, how all this can be integrated in the industrial symbiosis. Industrial symbiosis, we know that it's a subsidiary of the overall, as we do call, industrial ecology. And this foresees and and the industrial symbiosis foresees flows and interactions between the different systems in terms of wastes or energy, etc. The breaking down of the manufacturing in different levels, starting from a processed machine line, etc. level, allows us and allows the industrial ecosystem to create flows of energy or of materials or of waste between the different levels of an organization or a different interacting organization. So all this, the breakdown of the approach is the one that is the, let's say, the winning point to allow the integration within the so-called industrial symbiosis systems.
Thank you very much. With this, I would like to introduce our next panelist, Nebojša Vraneš, which is the Chamber of Commerce of Serbia the manager that is actually that has a long experience in waste management, but now with a new duty of tackling industrial symbiosis in Serbia. So without further ado, it's lovely to see you here. Nebojša, the floor is yours.
Hello, everybody.
Basically, you would, okay, sorry, one more announcement. Sorry, Nebojša. Just one more announcement is that everyone can, Nebojša will start talking in Serbia, but everyone that would like to listen in English language, you can switch the channel to the English room, and that is located on your bottom menu where the icon says interpretation. When you click on it, you can choose 2 rooms. There is an English and Serbian room. And we are kindly asking everyone that wants to listen to the English language to go in English room. I'm just going to allow a couple of seconds for this to happen. And just to check also if the interpreter is ready for this. Yeah. And okay, I think now, Nebojša, you can start. In Serbian, freely.
Hello everybody, dobar dan svima. Hvala Milana na lepom predstavljanju. Ono što bi se na početku zahvalio mojim prethodnicima da su detaljno objasnili sve problematike i sve druge vezane stvari u vezi industrijske simbioze. I ono što je lepo kad si poslednji, možeš malo da izmeniš svoju prezentaciju u skladu sa prethodnicima. Tako da bi ja otpočeo prezentaciju na malo drugi način. Samo da vidim, ja ne znam, sad ne vidim da li vi vidite sve.
Sve vidimo.
Sve vidite, dobro.
Sve, okay.
Samo trenutak, ja ne vidim šta šerujem zapravo.
Mi vidimo prezentaciju koja je zapravo u onom radnom modu, nije full screen.
Aha, samo trenutak.
Eto, sad vidimo full screen.
Je li se promenio slajd?
Jeste.
Dobro. Izvinjavam se na tehničkom problemu. Znači, ono što vidimo je da industrijska simbioza i što su prethodnici rekli, jedan od kompleksnijih problema u celom poslovanju. U stvari, šta je problem? Problem je što su ljudi malo više zakomplikovali prilikom donošenja zakona i straha od otpada, upravljanja otpadom, svim opasnim materijalima. Tako da, Milan, izvini, šta se događa?
Samo sekund, ja sam pokušao sam samo da popravim šta se desilo na ekranu. Nebojša, ako imaš problema, mogu ja da preuzem i da podelim tvoju prezentaciju.
Pa, ja sad...
A da, ne, sad imaš
samo da ti... A da. Samo trenutak.
Ajde da pokušamo ponovo sa tvoje strane, pa ćemo onda, ako ne ide, mi ćemo preuzeti. Tada imamo i treće pitanje za naše... So we have a third question for our participants. What would be, by your interpretation, your thinking, what would be the goal of the industrial symbiosis? Optimize production, make the first step towards circular economy, reduce pollution, higher quality products, or something else? Okay. All right, very interesting development. Okay, based on the approximately 50% of the audience that had voted, we have that audience thinks that the industrial symbiosis is good for optimizing the production and basically sharing resources and waste from one actor to another is a way to make more efficient and more effective production. Of course, there are many of the barriers to make this. We have mentioned some of them. One is the logical questions. Should we start bottom up or top down? The other one is actually the framework, the policy framework that is enabling or preventing industrial symbiosis, and what would be the goal of the companies really to search for industrial symbiosis. And we have the opinion of audience here. At the beginning, it was less pollution, but what we've seen is that sometimes the optimization of production can also drive less pollution, but not always. We have to take care of that we are accounting for both dimensions. Nebojša, how are we standing with the presentation?
We are standing very well.
Okay.
So start from beginning, yeah?
Yeah, okay, fine. So you can maybe connect with these results because people think that industrial symbiosis is about optimizing the production. And some of them actually very equally, they think it's a first step towards circular economy, 26%, and 26% less pollution. So you can connect with this whenever it suits you as well. Thank you, Nebojša. Now it's good. Perfect. Let's continue.
Okay, thank you. Možemo da nastavimo i sa prevodiocem. Znači, ono što je bitno da industrijska simbioza je od početka svog nastajanja služila da podstakne jednostavno kompanije kako bi se povećala saradnja među raznim industrijama i kako bi se iskoristilo otpadni materijal i drugi resursi, dalje to energije ili toplota, da bi se poboljšala sa jedne strane proizvodnja kompanija, sa druge strane da bi se na normalan, tako reći, prirodan način rešili neke stvari koje su danas malo više zakomplikovane. Zato sam hteo da ovu prezentaciju započnem od nekog osnovnog podsjećanja, ono što smo učili kao mladi, a to da je naš odnos i u životu i da generalno živimo u stanju balansa i u savršenoj ravnoteži. A počeo bi od onoga što je danas svakog sata se spominje i mislimo o tome, a to su virusi, bez obzira koliko su danas smo zaplašeni od njih, međutim životni ciklus i život nam pokazuje kako mi u veoma velikoj simbiozi živimo sa njima.
But actually we do live in a symbiosis with the viruses nowadays. And actually it was even before the human being. He doesn't remember before the human being, but still the viruses are really old and they actually cooperate with our bodies. So let's say that the human body is actually 10 or 13% of viruses more than actually normal human cells. So in order not to go further in this complex topic, which is actually as well a little bit dangerous to talk about nowadays, he would just like to mention the 5 biggest symbioses in the nature. Some of them we live with, some of them we actually see only in the documentaries. But the most important is that actually we made many new products, we made new relationships between industries, businesses, and actually way of living, destroyed many natural symbioses that existed. He thinks that actually the million and billion of years there were in the nature symbiosis, but
izađemo iz celog tog začaranog kruga, ali nikako da se resetujemo na početni nivo i da pogledamo kako to priroda rešava. Industrijska simbioza bi trebala da bude suština i sama srž cirkularne ekonomije. Cirkularna ekonomija nije samo otpad, to svi većina nas zna i ponavljamo non stop i jako je kompleksna i zato je industrijska simbioza neki početni nivo celog cirkularnog procesa. to smo videli, koleginica iz Bugarske nam je pomenula neke osnovne i početne industrije kako su krenule, a ono što je bitno da bi ovo sve funkcionisalo, učesnici moraju da budu i državne i lokalne institucije, i privreda i građani. Lokalne institucije i državne, one moraju da prihvate da je industrijska simbioza jedini mogući pristup reorganizaciji i planiranja kako za lokalnu, tako i za republičku vlast, što se tiče našeg političke situacije, i neodrživo je da se nove fabrike i pogoni otvaraju bez principa industrijske simbioze, to je cirkularne ekonomije. Ključno je da se zakonski okviri usklade sa principima industrijske simbioze i cirkularne ekonomije i zelene javne nabavke, bez kojih ovo neće biti moguće, jer dok god bude najjeftiniji proizvod ili usluga najviše na tenderima pobeđivala, nećemo krenuti sa mrtve tačke. Subvencije i podsticaji isključivo...
Only think about the chip. So we do need to think about the subsidies, how to implement them, and so in that case, if we give funds to develop the circular economy, we can continue. So in the whole process, it is very important to have motivated multiple stakeholders. We do have some very important documents and
u digitalnom vremenu i mislim da strogo poverljive informacije maltene i ne postoje, da je sve vidljivo, sve se zna. Naime, tehnološki procesi dugo nisu menjani na ozbiljan način, sve su neke inovacije u smislu kombinacije različitih tehnologija. I može biti jako teško primeniti određene načine da bi se delili resursi iz fabrika ukoliko se oni drže principe strogo poverljivih tajni. Ono što je po meni bitno, kolega je pomenuo 5 ključnih stavki, doduše vezano za footprint i za druge tačke zagađenja, a što se tiče industrijske simbioze, to su tehnološke inovacije, održivost, ušteda energije, saradnja, informacije, ekonomija i zakoni. To su pokretači glavni, svi oni moraju, nažalost, da se usklade i da bi bila moguća simbioza. Preskočio bi ovo, pošto koleginica dala neke primere. Kompanija Rotor je poznata po tome što stare industrije pretvara u galerije sa iskorišćenjem materijala koji postoje na tom mestu, na lokalitetu. Ovo je grad koji je Singapur i Kina izgradila u totalnoj okružen je sa industrijskim zonama i povezan sa brzim vozovima, 100% ekološki, jedna naučna fantastika koja funkcioniše od pre par godina. Koleginica je spomenula najpoznatiji primer industrijske simbioze Kalundborg, koji je otpočeo celu priču 1972. godine. Moj lični stav je da je to moguće na maltene u svim zemljama uspostaviti u to vreme i verovatno je bilo uspostavljeno. Međutim, ono što bi na kraju ove prezentacije naglasio je da samim donošenjem zakona i o upravljanju otpadom i direktivama i praćenjem otpada samo smo, bar kod nas, govorim za Srbiju, zakomplikovali i onemogućili praktično industrijsku simbiozu da teče na neki prirodan način. Mislim, kad kažem prirodan, da se kompanije koje su svesne svoje proizvodnje i svojih ostataka mogu dogovoriti na tržišnom nivou kako to da funkcionišu bez naravno remećenja životne sredine. I ovako danas izgleda čuveni Kalundborg koji ima sada preko 20 nekih preduzeća koje žive u simbiozi i razmenjuju svoje nus proizvode i ostatke, dalje energija, dalje toplota, dalje materijal, nije bitno, ali uglavnom to izgleda prelepo. Ono što sam malo pre spomenuo je problem kraj otpada i prevelike administracije u upravljanju otpadom. Šta to znači? Znači danas u Srbiji da bi neka kompanija predala svoj otpad drugoj kompaniji koji to može da bude sirovina, mora da krene dokumentacija o praćenju otpada, analize, ali ono što najviše otežava je što kompanija koja može da preuzme takvu vrstu materijala, to je otpada, mora da ima dozvolu za tretman otpada, što dosta komplikuje običnim proizvođačima koji daću primer, na primer, Avala Ada, koja je veliki prerađivač i recikler kartonske ambalaže, to je kartona i papira, u svom ostatku imaju vlakna. Ta vlakna su idealna i koriste se u mnogim zemljama kao dodatak u proizvodnji crepova, jer mu daju specifičnu armaturu i čvrstinu, tako da ojačavaju ceo proizvod. Ta saradnja nije moguća iz upravo ovih razloga što sam spomenuo, da kompanija koja proizvodi crepove mora da izvadi dozvolu za tretman otpada, a to nema nikakvog, mislim ima zakonskog smisla, ali nema smisla iz pogleda preduzeća koje se bavi crepom 70 godina, da sad treba da radi studiju procene uticaja na životnu sredinu za tretman otpada koji u principu poboljšava njen proizvod. Ono što je Privredna komora Srbije pokrenula je rešavanje ovog problema i to smo krenuli sa 4 vrste materijala, to je strugani asfalt, metaloška šljaka, guma i staklo. Ova prva 2 materijala smo pokrenuli radnu grupu i za uvođenje pravilnika, to je pravilnika sa jasnim parametrima kako postupati sa struganim asfaltom i metaloškom šljakom. Uključeni su svi akteri koji su zainteresovani, od proizvođača do izvođača radova kod struganog asfalta, to su naravno putarske firme. Znamo svi, svesni smo koliko se danas renovira puteva i taj strugani asfalt je dostigao danas količinu od 1.000.000 tona na stanju po raznim njivama širom Srbije, koji ne može da se upotrebi zakonski, baš zbog ovih svih navedenih dokumentacija i administracija, nego se razvlači po lokalu za neke sitne prepravke, dopravke, a na kraju se ne uradi kako valja i to ne liči ni na šta. Tako da pravilnici bi opisali kompletnu proceduru, recepturu i praćenje kasnije tih radova kako ne bi došlo do neželjenih dejstava. U ovom slučaju nema nikakvih opasnih materijala, zato smo ih izabrali. Kod metaloške šljake će slično biti, a što se tiče guma i stakla, pokrenuli smo proceduru da uskladimo pravilnik iz 2019. godine koji trenutno u zastoju i ne primenjuje se.
To reuse the regulations from a few years ago, and we hope that until the end of the year we will have the manual ready, how to use, how to make byproducts, how not to have side effects from the byproducts, and how to help the Republic of Serbia and other companies not to have so many problems with administrations and papers, and how to manage these materials better?
Sredine i da se otpad kontroliše maksimalno. Završio bi ovu prezentaciju sa ovim jednim vremenskim tokom kako smo i gde smo, što svi znamo, i nadam se da ćemo kroz neku malu raspravu doći do nekih ključnih odgovora, a možda i nova pitanja, otvore neke nove teme. Hvala na pažnji i stojim na raspolaganju.
Hvala Nebojša. Ja ću nastaviti na srpskom, budući da su sada svi učesnici koji bi želeli da slušaju na engleskom u engleskoj sobi, pa će možda biti lakše da ovako završimo. Kaži nam kakav je status, postoje, sad ja imam nekoliko pitanja, ali skratit ću na dva. Postoje dve ključne stvari kod nas u zakonu koje, dakle u Srbiji u zakonu, koje preveniraju kruženje materijala. Jedno je ono što si pričao najviše, a to je status otpada, a drugo je definisanje nusproizvoda, odnosno byproducts. Kakvo je stanje u tom delu, budući da jedna firma može da deklariše, trebalo bi da može da deklariše nusproizvode koji bi kao takvi trebali da uđu kao input u drugu fabriku ili da se ponovo iskoriste u istoj fabrici?
Pa jednostavno ta tri pravilnika praktično koje se bave nusproizvodom su donesena 2019. i od tada bilo je nekih pokušaja sa pepelom, ali je praktično ceo proces stao, usporio se iz nekih nepoznatih razloga, meni bar. Ne vidim nikakvu ni lošu nameru, ni jednostavno takva je situacija. Ono što Privredna komora Srbije želi da doprinese i da pomogne kako privredi, tako i administraciji, da se sve ovo otkoči sa nekim najosnovnijim materijalima kao što su staklo i guma. Znamo da imamo gumarsku industriju u porastu kod nas i da se grade još 2 fabrike za proizvodnju guma. Postojeće fabrike imaju problema sa gumenim otpadom. Neke su obuhvaćene pravilnikom o posebnim tokovima otpada koji autogume, to je gume od vozila, gume od vozila svrstavaju i imaju taksu i one imaju neki svoj tok i sakupljače, međutim sve ostale vrste guma kao što su zaštita kod prozora, od toplote, od neke iz industrije obuće, iz građevinske industrije, to ništa nije obuhvaćeno, jednostavno ta guma stoji po skladištima i ne može da se upotrebi, iako može da se koristi za proizvodnju mnogih proizvoda. Ona je jednostavno zaglavljena u tom nekom međuprostoru i dok se ne pojasne neki detalji, samo stvaramo gubitke privredi.
Hvala Nebojša. Možda još jedno i ključno, odnosno završno pitanje, eto da krenemo od Nebojša, ali možda i za sve paneliste. Da li ste svesni, da li je krenulo razmatranje, planiranje ili možda aktivacija ne samo cirkulacije resursa, nego i eventualno cirkulacije vode, odnosno kaskadiranje vode između određenih subjekata, da li je krenula kolokacija, ono što je pomenula Elica, dakle pravljenje nekih planova ili pravljenje, recimo da krenemo od planova ekoindustrijskih parkova koji bi podržali industrijsku simbiozu. Znači prvo kaskadiranje vode, drugo kolokacije industrijskih parkovi i treće pitanje energetsko kaskadiranje, odnosno višak energije iz jedne fabrike da postane input za drugu. Uglavnom je to toplotna energija.
Pa evo mogu ja, pošto sam prvi na vezi, ako nije problem. Što se voda tiče i cirkulacije voda, mislim da je prepreka prečišćavanja otpadnih voda, koje prvo mora da se instalira kod nas u većem delu industrije, pa tek onda da se kreće u razmenu otpadnih voda. Što se tiče toplota, nažalost, tu su retko kada fabrike građene sa tim planom i krajnim ciljem da mogu da se uvežu oko toga. One su pravljene gde je nekom odgovaralo i gde je bilo moguće u tom trenutku bez razmišljanja o razmeni toplotne ili čak i vodene energije, što znamo da bi se izgubio smisao kad bi išlo na duge staze, to jest na velike razdaljine.
Hvala najviše, tako je. Elica or Mr. Stavropoulos, I can repeat the question in English. I don't know if you are in which room you are. So the last question was whether you are familiar with the initiatives that will take cascading of water and cascading or reuse of energy between two or more bodies. Sorry, one or two or more industries. So cascading water, cascading energy, and then making these co-location centers, trying to group industries together in order to facilitate for industrial symbiosis. I know that Elica has mentioned the co-location, but maybe reflection to these two aspects as well would be amazing. And at the same time, I would kindly ask all the participants to return to the main room so we can talk in, well, basically we are talking in English now. And Elica or Mr. Stavropoulos, whoever would like to contribute now, it's a perfect time.
I thought the question was to Mr. Stavropoulos or
to all of the panelists. So whether you are aware of the cascading water, cascading and reuse of energy between two or more actors, and you have mentioned the co-location, so we don't have to touch on this.
Yeah. I think we have such examples in Bulgaria, especially in terms of energy, but they are very limited still. Water, as Mr. Vranes mentioned, it's more complicated with water because water needs to be filtered and cleaned. Actually, we have a very fine example of circular economy innovation in Bulgaria. We have a startup supported by the EIT Climate Kick Accelerator last year. They're called Atlas Agroscience. They actually take the sludge from the water treatment plants and produce fertilizers for the agri-food industry. And they are doing very well. This could be some kind of, it's for sure circular economy. It could be some kind of industrial symbiosis, but not in its classical setup of co-locating companies. Maybe it goes more into the second pillar that I mentioned, companies that are not co-located but still share some streams. So it's a win-win with their solution. The water treatment plants become actually zero waste. And then agri-food producers, they receive some sustainable fertilizers that are not a product of the chemical industry, so to say.
Thank you. Thank you, Elica. Mr. Stavropoulos, I don't know if you've managed to hear the question or...
No, I had a small disconnection, but if you could repeat.
No problem. So if you're aware maybe of the initiatives that cascade water and reuse energy between companies or between industries in Greece.
Okay, there are initiatives, especially in the industrial zones, that the majority of, let's say, water requirements are being based. Okay, but this is actually very, very dependent on the landscape and the ecosystem that it has been addressed. And let me clarify what I want to indicate, what I want to highlight. We all understand that using or reusing the water from one source to another has to do with what is the processes that the water goes through and what kind of waste it does, let's say, carry with it. The fact is that due to the multi and different actors of the different industrial ecosystems. Sometimes this is not easy to be done, okay, or easy to create these flows of the wastewater or of the clean water within the various, let's say, points or stations. But there are initiatives that are being supported, strongly supported by governmental regional authorities, asking and let's say asking and legislating along the lines of these flows to be created.
Thank you, Mr. Stavropoulos. So one big conclusion is that there is let's call it a starting effect of planning of industrial symbiosis. We're starting to realize what are the barriers. There are several actors that are trying how to do this, but the visibility is still not here. So this is also a call for the companies and actors that are trying to produce or use or go in this world of industrial symbiosis to connect, if not with each other, then to us, and then we'll definitely promote this topic and delve deeper into this one in the coming, well, not in the coming months, but definitely in the next year. And with these things, I would like to mention two more important aspects, being that I've seen the participants cut. There will be one call for companies from the Circular Economy Beacons perspective. They will be open in late September, early October in Serbia. It is already open in Bulgaria, and Bosnia will be actually every day now. So open call for companies to join Circular Economy Beacons project and actually have their transition pathway towards circular economy kind of discovered. So we're going to work with them in order to create a roadmap towards circularity in this specific country. So this is a call to use this opportunity. We're going to do this also next year, and it's a nice opportunity to use services while they're very, very affordable. Basically, they're going to be for free. And the second one is the call for cities, where we will be having the education program that will be running in Romania, Bulgaria, Serbia, and Bosnia and Herzegovina, and Greece. Sorry, open call for cities. Where we will deliver the education workshop on how to understand circular economy from the local policy perspective and from the local support system perspective. And as well, together with them, we will open the dialogue of, basically we'll open the doors for dialogue for the next year and start working in this, defining what are the hotspots for local municipalities in order to tackle circular economy and enable things such as, for instance, industrial symbiosis on their local ground. So two calls, one for companies, one for cities. Follow our site and you'll be definitely informed, and follow our LinkedIn project that maybe it's even easier to get information through this channel. With these information, thank you very much for joining the webinar, and we will definitely send you the materials as soon as we gather them, the final versions. Thank you very much. Have a great day, and see you soon. Next webinar is in December, and it's going to tackle policy management. So recent policy developments in our countries, where also Circular Economy Beacons have mapped a lot of interesting grounds, what is necessary to be developed and what kind of base is necessary to be developed in order to support circular economy in all of the countries of particularly West Balkan region. So thank you very much for attention. Hopefully it was fun to you as it was fun to us, and see you soon. Enjoy your day.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Milan.